She made a deal with something in the forest, and for 17 years she thought she had won. The village of Verbeck sat at the edge of a wood that nobody entered after dark, not because of wolves, not because of thieves, because the old women said something lived there, something that listened, something that collected debts in ways you wouldn't understand until it was far too late. Marta didn't believe in old women's stories. She was 26, practical, and her daughter was dying. The fever had started on a Tuesday. By Friday, the village healer had run out of answers. By Sunday, Marta's husband was building a small wooden box. And Marta, with nothing left to lose, walked into the forest at midnight and spoke out loud to whatever was listening. She asked for her daughter's life. Something answered. She couldn't describe what she saw. When she tried to explain it later, she used words like tall and still, and old in a way that the mountains are old. It didn't speak in a language, it made her understand. And what it made her understand was this. Yes, it would save the child, but it would need somewhere to stay. Marta said yes. The daughter recovered by morning. The wooden box was never used, and life continued. Almost normally. Almost. The girl, Anya, grew up quiet. Too quiet. She knew things she shouldn't. She would sit at the edge of the tree line and stare into the dark for hours without blinking. Animals came to her, wild ones, foxes and ravens, and once a wolf that sat beside her like a dog. She didn't seem frightened by anything. She didn't seem frightened of anything at all. The village children stopped playing with her. The adults stopped meeting her eyes. Marta told herself it was nothing, the trauma of early illness, a sensitive nature. Children were strange. Then Anya turned 17. On the night of her birthday, she walked to the edge of the forest and simply stood there. Marta watched from the cottage window. She watched her daughter stand completely still for 6 hours. She watched the trees around her daughter bend, not in the wind because there was no wind, bending toward her, like they were listening. And then Anya turned around and looked directly at her mother through the window, and what Marta saw in her daughter's face was not her daughter. She understood it then. The deal she had made 17 years ago, it had needed somewhere to stay, not just for one night, not just until the fever broke. It had needed a body to grow into, a life to occupy, a mind to wear slowly the way water wears stone. Her daughter had never entirely been her daughter. She had saved her child's body and handed her child's life to something else. The thing inside Anya walked to the cottage door and stood in the frame, and in a voice that was almost her daughter's voice, it said something Marta had never told anyone. The exact words she had spoken into the forest that night 17 years ago. Proof that it had been there from the beginning. Proof that it had been listening long before she arrived. The forest doesn't collect its debts all at once. That would be too merciful. It waits. It grows what it's owed. And by the time you realize the shape of the bargain you made, the payment is already almost complete. Marta had saved her daughter's life. Every part of that was true. She just hadn't saved her daughter.